sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If you want the intercession of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on the day of Qiyamah, he is telling us what to do. He says, Man admana, anyone who promises me, anyone who gives me the assurance, in Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, anyone who assures Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam of two things. Of two things. And what are the two things? Ma bayna al-lahyayn. What is between the two jaw bones? And what is that? Al-lisan, the tongue. And the second thing, wa ma bayna rijlayn. And what is between the two legs? And what is that? The private part. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, if you assure me of using these two things rightly, your tongue and your private part, the Prophet sallallahu says, he assures you of Jannah. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Using it correctly with the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to use it, with the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet is assuring us of Al-Jannah. He is assuring us of success. He is assuring us from the shield away from the hell of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But today is unfortunate. We don't even count it as part of the blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We just use everything the way we want, not considering how Allah is going to feel about how we use them. The way we talk. Wallahi, many nations have been destroyed just because of the word. Many nations. And at the same time, many nations have been made and created as good nations just because of good words. So let's think about this. Our tongue is a blessing from Allah that the Prophet ﷺ says in one of the hadith. He said, in the last part of the hadith, he said, فَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ الْمُضْغَةِ. There is a flesh in the body. إِذَا صَلَحَتْ. When the flesh is good, صَلَحَ جَسَدِ كُلُّ. All the part of the body is good. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ. But when this flesh is bad, فَسَدَ جَسَدِ كُلُّ. All the part of the body is bad. And Prophet ﷺ said, أَلَا وَإِلَى الْقَلْبِ. That part of the body is our hearts, right? And the scholars, when they explain this hadith, they say, we don't see our hearts. I don't see your heart, you don't see my heart. I don't know what you have in your heart, and you don't know what I have in my heart. But one of the things that will bring out what we have in our heart is the tongue. So when your heart is good, your tongue is good. When your heart is bad, your tongue is bad. Major sins that have been ascribed or attached to the tongues. Major sins. Slandering, backbiting, cursing, lying. Allah says, La'natullahi ala al-kadhibin. The woe of Allah be upon those who lie. We lie with what? With our mouth. Wailun likulli humazatin lumaza. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is attaching punishments. Not ordinary punishments. Grievance, like great punishments, attached to the use of the tongue if it is used in the wrong way. So that is why the scholars, they advise us that before we say anything, we should think in depth. We should think about the consequence of our words. Is it going to be beneficial to me? Is it going to be beneficial to my brothers? Is it going to be beneficial to the ummah? Is it going to be beneficial to the environment, to the community, before we utter a single word? We are not just saying it for saying sake. Wallahi, every single word that we say is written. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, وَمَا يَلْفِظُ. He says, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. Allahu Akbar. There is no single word that you say. No single word that you say. It's been written down for you, and you will come and meet it of Qiyamah. Allah will bring it up on the day of Qiyamah. Do you remember when you said this? A lot of us today have said a lot of things that have destroyed the lives of others unknowingly. We don't know, we just said it. But wallahi, it has destroyed a lot of people. Our words. And a lot of us have said a lot of things that have benefited a lot of people, but we don't know. On the day of Qiyamah, Allah will bring these people. And some of them will say, "Oh Allah, this guidance that I have is from me, is from what I have from this person. Sabab al-Jannah." Another person would come and say, "This thing that happened to me today, this misguidance that I have today is from the word of so-so person. Sabab al-Nar." So we should be watchful of what we say with our mouth. We should know that verily Allah is what? Sami'un Basir. He hears everything we say and He sees everything we do. A man came to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and asked him, "O Prophet of Allah, what is the right way to salvation?" The very first advice the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave him was that, watch your tongue. Like I said earlier, أكثر خطايا بني آدم في اللسان. The major part of the sins of Bani Adam is on the tongue. Subhanallah. And that is why, Allahu Akbar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that this tongue has a lot of defects. A lot. On the day of Qiyamah, Allah says in Surah Yasin, Allah says, يَوْمَ تَشْهَدُ عَلَيْهِمْ أَلْسِنَتُهُمْ وَأَيْدِيَهُمْ وَأَرْجُلُهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا